I'll probably stick this under harmonic upkeep as well as what to practice to increase your harmonic vocabulary as a composer. But one of the things I was doing this morning was going through the usual 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1 in all keys. And I decided, I don't want to do this today. I'm going to find a new way to do this. And that's exactly what I did. And also, I might find a new way to present it. It may not be great, but it's a new way to actually take the same things you already know and present it in a completely different way. And doing such exercises actually forces you to think a little bit more outside of what you normally do. And that's always a good case, to always come up with new moves with the same thing. And also ways to present it that you've never actually presented it that way before. You never tried it that way. So, that's what this is about as well. So I was going through this just kind of harmonic upkeep. 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, which I'll do about once a week, and then through minor. And I'll go around the circle of fifths until I hit all 24 major, all 12 major keys and all 12 minor keys. But I stopped in the middle of it and said, I'm going to do this something different. I'm going to still use this same harmonic sequence, but with that pattern of inversion. But I'm going to put it at the top note instead. And it's still the same chord progression, except now we have this little sequential part aspect of it. So I decided I'm going to do it in sevenths. Sevenths alternating between triads. Like this. Okay, very straightforward. And then I took it a step further. I'm going to take that same pattern, just make it a 3-note pattern, because you don't need all the tones of a chord for it to sound like that chord. So basically, I created a little exercise for myself to go through the keys in a different way using the same harmonic pattern. And I apologize, but you probably should know what a 7th chord is. I didn't write in the chord names. It's just 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1 keeps repeating through the circle of fifths is how you're going to practice this. A new way to do the same thing. So instead of all the tones of the 7th chords, we only need 3. Which gives us this. Then we'll go to F. So I was just repeating it. You could do this in any octave, but what I'd do is probably do something like this. Repeat in F. The exact same pattern. And you might want to keep going through the circle of fifths, like this. I didn't write it all out. This is something you'd probably have to figure out. Eventually you're going to run out of room and you're going to have to shift upwards again. It'll keep falling downwards, but eventually you will have to shift. Now we have a new way to voice this specific sequence, and we don't want it to sound, maybe we don't want it to sound classical, you know? Well, that's a terrible example. Let me actually load up a sequence that uses this pattern that I've done before. This is meant to sound like a classical sonata kind of piano concerto. Well, that type of sound. So let's say we don't want to sound like that. This is good reason to come up with sequences like this, because you could use them in different ways and you don't have to sound like that classical. You could do this continuous chain downwards like this and maybe use it as an intro. The point is it does not sound like that sonata kind of classical sound. So do it if you do it with a pedal point on the 5th degree and do this chain down like this. Now you have an intro to something. A new way to do the same thing. You might just do a partial aspect of the sequence, like 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2. Don't go to the 5 chord. And actually, if we go through this cycle from C, F to B flat using just this pattern I just did with always writing the 5th degree, it's going to sound very mixolydian and impressionistic. F, B flat, whole tone. Technically doing it like that would actually turn each transition into mixolydian, but it's a quick way to actually get that impressionistic sound if you actually just write the 5th degree every time you go through this harmonic sequence. So there's another way you can present it. It sounds nothing like the sonata kind of classical thing anymore. That's one of the most amazing things about music, is you could take the same exact material, try to represent it in a different way, and it'll sound totally different. And you want to get into the habit of taking material you already know and see how you can completely rearrange it to sound nothing like the original way you were doing it and practicing it. Always change things up. Try to recreate something different from what you already know. That's an invaluable skill. And it's also a good idea to practice creating something, even if it's terrible, with something you've completely altered to sound like completely different from its original form. So basically, after you do something as an exercise, try to find ways to use it and just literally experiment.